My ex-wife tried to secretly move 2,000 miles away with my kids. I found out 48 hours before, filed emergency orders, and caught her at the airport. Now I have full custody. Hello, Reddit I Plus here. My name's Grant. I'm 36 years old, and 3 weeks ago I lived through what can only be described as the longest, most terrifying 3 days of my life. I came within hours of losing my 2 children forever, but I fought back, and I won. My ex-wife Tara and I divorced 3 years ago after nearly a decade of marriage. We weren't enemies, but we weren't friends either. We had 2 amazing kids, Liam, 10, and Ruby, 8. After the divorce, we split custody evenly. 1 week with her, 1 week with me. We kept communications strictly professional, using a co-parenting app that logged every message and calendar update. No drama, no screaming, no unnecessary calls, just updates about school, doctor visits, and piano lessons. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. The kids were stable, and that was all that mattered to me. Then, about 6 months ago, Tara started dating someone new, a man named Brian, who lived all the way in Colorado. At first, she mentioned him casually, something like, "Just wanted you to know, I met someone online. He's nice. We're taking things slow. Fine by me." She was free to date whoever she wanted. But then, little by little, she started talking about Colorado a lot more. How clean the air was, how peaceful the mountains were, how much cheaper housing was compared to North Carolina, how great the schools were out there. It felt innocent at first, just small talk, until it wasn't. 2 weeks ago, during my week with the kids, Ruby said something that made my stomach twist. She was at the kitchen counter, coloring, when she said, "Daddy, Mommy said I'm gonna have a new teacher soon." I looked up. "A new teacher? Why?" She shrugged. "Because we're moving to a place with big mountains. Mommy says I'll make new friends there." My heart froze. I asked, as calmly as I could, "Did Mommy say when?" Ruby said, "Soon, maybe after my birthday." Her birthday was 3 weeks away. I turned to Liam, who was on the couch playing video games, and asked if Mommy had said anything to him. Without looking up, he said, "Yeah, she said Brian's gonna be our new stepdad, and we're gonna have a huge house." My chest tightened. I smiled weakly for their sake, but inside, alarms were going off. That night, after tucking them in, I checked the co-parenting app. No messages from Tara, no mention of schools, moves, or anything. I sent her a quick text. "Hey, the kids mentioned something about moving or a new school. Is there something going on I should know about?" Her reply came a few minutes later. "No idea what they're talking about. Maybe they misunderstood. I was telling them about Brian's niece's school. Something about it felt off. So, against my better judgment, I did something I hadn't done in years. I looked her up on social media. Her profiles were private, but Brian's weren't. His Instagram hit me like a punch in the gut. Photos of him and Tara smiling in front of for sale signs. Captions like, "House hunting for my future family," and "Can't wait to have everyone here soon." I kept scrolling and saw photos of empty bedrooms with captions like, "My boy's room," and "Little princess's space." He was talking about my kids. Connecting the dots, I reverse image searched the house photos and found the listing, a 4-bedroom home in a suburb outside Denver. The listing said, "Pending offer." Then I looked up local school events in the same town, and that's when my blood ran cold. I found a small local news article about a school's open house. In one of the photos, standing near a sign that said, "Welcome new families," was Tara, holding Ruby's hand, with Brian beside them. She'd already enrolled our daughter in a Colorado school. No notice, no discussion, no court permission. I realized then, she was planning to disappear with my kids. It was already late, nearly 9 p.m., but I called my lawyer and left the most desperate voicemail of my life. By sunrise, he called me back. He didn't waste words. "Grant, this is serious. If she's planning to move across state lines without your consent, that's custodial interference. You need to gather every piece of proof you have." For the next few hours, I compiled everything. Screenshots, house listings, social media posts, the news article, even the kids' statements. By 10 a.m., my lawyer had filed an emergency motion for custody and a temporary restraining order, preventing Tara from removing the kids from the state. By 3 p.m., a court clerk personally served Tara at her house. At 3:15, she called me, furious. "You're paranoid, Grant. You're trying to control me again." I wasn't moving. I was just looking. I told her I had proof she'd enrolled Ruby in a new school. She went silent, then hung up. The next morning, Thursday, my lawyer called. He'd hired a private investigator who'd uncovered everything. Tara had already signed a lease on the Denver house. She'd quit her job in North Carolina. She'd scheduled movers for Saturday. The plan was set. If I hadn't found out when I did, she would have been gone in 48 hours. With my kids 1,500 miles away, Friday was supposed to be my pickup day. Tara was supposed to drop the kids off at 9 a.m. She didn't show. I called her. No answer. Texted. No response. The co-parenting app showed message unread. My lawyer called the police. Officers went to her address for a welfare check. The house was empty. A neighbor said she'd seen Tara loading suitcases into her SUV around 6 a.m. with the kids in pajamas. That's when the judge issued an emergency custody transfer order and authorized police to recover the children. At 11 a.m., they found her car at the airport. Tara was at the check-in counter, buying 3 one-way tickets to Denver. Police stopped her before she could pass security. In court that afternoon, Tara tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, that she was just visiting Brian for a few weeks. But the evidence told the truth. The signed lease, the school enrollment forms, the resignation letter from her job. The judge didn't need convincing. Tara lost primary custody that day. I now have the kids full-time, and she only gets supervised visitation until further review. That weekend, after everything calmed down, I sat on the porch while the kids played in the yard. It hit me how close I'd come to losing them forever. If Ruby hadn't mentioned that new school, if I hadn't checked that Instagram post, or if my lawyer had delayed filing for even a day, Tara would have vanished with them. No calls, no goodbyes, just gone. I still don't fully understand what she was thinking. Maybe she convinced herself it was love. Maybe she thought she'd win in court later. But none of that matters now. What matters is that my kids are safe. They're home. And no one will ever take them from me again. Never assume the other parent would. Never go that far. When it comes to custody, stay alert, stay documented, and trust your instincts. Because sometimes, those instincts are the only thing standing between you and losing everything that matters. After the court took Tara's custody away, you'd think that would be the end of it. That maybe she'd accept what she'd done, take responsibility, and start rebuilding her relationship with the kids the right way. But that's not what happened. Not even close. The first few weeks after the hearing were surreal. The house felt different, quieter, safer, but also heavy with confusion. Liam and Ruby were happy to be home, but they were full of questions. Why was Mommy at the airport? Why can't we see her like before? Did we do something bad? It broke me to explain. I told them, as gently as I could, that their mom made a mistake, that she tried to move them without telling anyone, and now the court needed time to make sure everything was safe. They accepted it, but I could see the hurt in their eyes, especially Ruby. She missed her mom deeply, and as for Tara, she disappeared for a while. No texts, no calls, no updates through the co-parenting app. Just silence. Then, out of nowhere, 3 months later, I got a message from her lawyer. Tara was filing for modification of custody, claiming she'd been unfairly treated, that the evidence was taken out of context, and that I'd alienated the children from her. When I read the filing, I nearly laughed, if I hadn't been so angry. She claimed the move wasn't permanent, that she was just testing a temporary relocation for better work opportunities. Never mind the fact that she'd quit her job, signed a lease, and enrolled the kids in a new school. But she wasn't done. A few days later, Liam came home from supervised visitation, looking confused. "Daddy," he said, "Mommy said the judge made a mistake. She said soon we'll be living with her again. Is that true?" I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. Tara was already trying to turn the kids against me. When the custody modification hearing came around, she showed up dressed like a saint. White blouse, soft voice, eyes full of rehearsed tears. She told the judge she'd been scared to tell me about the move because I was controlling. That she didn't mean to take the kids away. She just wanted a better life for them. She even tried to paint me as the villain. Claimed I'd invaded her privacy by looking at her social media. But my lawyer wasn't new to her games. He stood up and laid out everything again. The photos, the house contract, the school enrollment, the flight receipts, even the resignation email she'd sent to her boss in North Carolina. Every time a piece of evidence was shown, Tara's face crumbled a little more. Then came the final blow. The private investigator we'd hired before? He had proof that Tara and Brian had continued house hunting even after the court order, using Brian's name alone. The judge wasn't amused. He looked directly at her and said, "Ms. Halloran, you've shown repeated disregard for this court's orders, and for your children's stability. This isn't about control. This is about safety." Tara tried to speak, to cry, to defend herself, but the judge cut her off. "Custody remains with Mr. Lawson. Supervised visitation will continue for at least 1 year. Further violation will result in termination of parental rights." Her attorney dropped his pen. Tara broke down in tears. I didn't feel triumphant, just tired. exhausted from months of lies and chaos, but relief washed over me. For once, justice wasn't blind. The months that followed were about rebuilding. Ruby had nightmares for a while, dreams of being taken away. Liam became protective of her, always making sure she stayed close when we went out. I got them into therapy, and little by little, the shadows started to fade. I also changed everything about my life. No more half measures. I adjusted my work schedule so I could be there for every school drop-off, every soccer game, every piano recital. The three of us became a unit, a little family of survivors who had weathered a storm. Tara's last attempt. A year later, Tara tried one more thing. She requested unsupervised visitation, claiming she'd found stability again. Said she'd broken up with Brian, moved back to North Carolina, and was ready to rebuild. The court granted a trial visitation period under supervision. The first few visits went fine. The kids were nervous at first, but she seemed calmer, more mature even. Then came visit number 4. The supervising social worker caught Tara whispering to the kids about moving to Grandma's house for the summer. When asked where Grandma lived, Ruby innocently said, Colorado. That was the end of it. The judge revoked all unsupervised privileges immediately. Tara's face that day, I'll never forget it. It wasn't anger anymore. It was defeat. The look of someone who finally realized she'd lost everything because of her own choices. It's been 2 years since then. The kids are thriving now. Liam just started middle school and Ruby's obsessed with art and baking. We still go to family therapy every few months, mostly to keep communication open. Tara gets to see them a few times a year under supervision. And while it's sad, I've accepted it's the safest way. She sends letters sometimes, apologizing. I read them first, then decide whether to share them with the kids. I've moved on emotionally too. Not into another relationship, not yet, but into a better version of myself. Stronger, wiser. A man who knows what's truly worth fighting for. Looking back, I realize something powerful. Love can make people do desperate things, but desperation isn't love. Control isn't love. Lying isn't love. Real love is responsibility. It's showing up every day, even when it's hard. Tara lost sight of that, but I never will. Because now, every night when I tuck my kids into bed and hear them whisper, "Good night, Daddy," I know. I didn't just win a custody battle. I won their safety, their trust, and our peace. And that's worth more than anything in this world.